Welcome back, dude and dudettes, to another wild episode of Send It Mate. We're here to talk about all things hunting and outdoors. And today, we've got something that'll keep your gear running smoother than a dingo's getaway.
That's right. Our show is brought to you by High Caliber, the gun and knife oil company that knows how to keep your firearms and blades in tip-top shape.
High Caliber is like the secret sauce for hunters, anglers, and outdoorsy folk everywhere. It's like the magic potion that makes your gun and knives happier than a dog with two tails.
You know, guys, I've been using High Caliber oil for a while now, and let me tell you, it's the duck's nuts. My rifle practically sings a lullaby when I take it out hunting.
And speaking of lullabies, ever tried sneaking up on a deer with a squeaky gun? It's a prime way to end up with no venison in the freezer. You'll be hungrier than a vegan at a bacon festival.
Absolutely. But with High Caliber oil, your gun will be quieter than a ninja in moonlight. You'll be stalking your prey with the grace and stealth of a mountain lion.
High Caliber doesn't just keep things quiet, it also prevents rust and corrosion, so you won't find your gear looking like it spent a season at the bottom of a creek.
That's right, and for you knife enthusiasts out there, High Caliber has got you covered too. Your trusty blade will slice through anything smoother than butter on a hot biscuit.
So, folks, don't let your gear become a rusty, squeaky mess. Head on over to highcaliber.com.au and grab a bottle of their oil today.
And if you use the code SENDITMATE at checkout, you'll get a special discount. I say again, use the code SENDITMATE for all your oil slick, stealthy hunting needs.
Thanks to High Caliber, you'll be sending it in style and silence.
So, gear up, oil up, and send it, mate. High Caliber, the ultimate oil for the ultimate hunter.
Well, how to do? How you going? My name is Caleb, and this is Send It Mate Podcast.
And my name is Jeff.
Well, no one told me about this one, but my name is Culture.
My name is Culture, little Italiano. Oh, we love it, man. Yeah, we like to surprise you, mate. This is the price you pay for being in another state, and we just throw little surprises out there for you.
Can I?
Yeah, I'm really not liking the others. No, well, yeah, go on.
Can we all do something about this screen? Because it's terrible.
Hey, it's on him to fix his own quality. You're pixelated as hell at our end, but it doesn't matter, Josh. It's the audio quality that matters for the listening pleasure.
Can we just shrink him back?
Look,
You want to shrink him back?
as long as I'm not delayed, that's probably the main thing.
Yeah, because that's the part we can't deal with. Anyway,
No, I can't deal with that.
Josh can't deal with it.
Continue. We're actually recording a podcast here. But
We are. Yeah, let's not talk about our technical difficulties because we've spent too much time doing that recently. Oh,
yeah, but this other state's killing me because of the time zones. So, yeah, obviously you guys know, but tonight I misinterpreted the time
Okay.
zone, and I was an hour behind, really.
Where were you?
Well, I was dinner, shower, and just before I had a shower, I saw Caleb's message, and I realised that I fucked up the time zones, and I was thinking we were an hour in front,
I mean,
not an hour behind, or half an hour behind.
no offense, but is it critical that you shower before the podcast, given that you're the only one in the room?
Yeah, just more of a feel good, to be honest.
It is critical.
Look good, feel good.
He wants to get rid of the gooch sweat.
The stank of the day's
Like
work.
your previous job, you'd want to shower before doing anything. Hey, maybe your job now, you don't really do anything; you just press keyboard.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that's all I do.
Twisting
I just press keyboard.
You press keyboard. Press the any key. Where's the any key?
I can assure anyone listening who knows what I do much more than just press keyboard.
Well, actually, I think
It's like the Simpsons where they had the chicken and it just like he just presses enter. That's what you have.
I actually think you'd be replaceable, man. I mean, ChatGPT is going to replace your job. 100%.
Is ChatGPT a physical person that can go and visit people?
No one wants that. It's all emails these days.
No.
Yeah.
It's more of a relationship between people, not online. So you do a little bit more than keyboard. You like maybe phone call as well.
Correct.
ChatGPT would struggle with
Correct. It's a personal relationship side of things, mate.
For anyone that's not sure what he does, he started working for Telstra. So he's enjoying it. He's actually excelling quite well, being the only English person speaking for the company. So he's just jumping the ranks.
Mate, I can think of a million things I would rather do than work for Telstra, just quietly.
100%, eh?
Anyway, while we're on technical stuff, man, move your microphone away from your face a bit because we can just hear this every time you laugh. And I know we're funny, but thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
You guys are a crack up, but yeah, how's that?
Much better. Thank you. Thank you.
Much better.
Anyway, let's crack on. We're getting into this episode. We put it out there. Did you want to hear it? Did you want to get into the faith discussion? Because let's be honest, Josh has started shoehorning it into the conversation at regular intervals lately.
Bruh, you got to have
It's generally been the close of a podcast.
So we may as well get into it, thrash it out, and have a bit of a discussion. And look, the objective here is not to try and shout each other down and try and win an argument or anything like that. We just want to share some unique perspectives on faith and what that means to us, or, you know, some of the potential problems or the good experiences or whatever you want to hear, because there's a lot out there. People have a lot of different opinions on what faith means or their experience with it, good or bad. So I think it is worthwhile discussing, and it can be a little bit cringy at times in some people's mind. But
Well,
look,
it's
it
funny.
does come up, and in real life, when you're sitting around the campfire, which is the discussions we want to sort of replicate, you're going to get into it. There's always someone that's maybe one way more inclined than someone else. So these conversations do pop up in real life. So
It's kind of like politics.
My God, everyone's fighting for a gap in the conversation. We need that talking stick again.
It's hard sometimes.
Look, it's funny you say that because most people's perception about religion, and this is where it differs with my faith, is it's not a religion, it's just a relationship. But most people's perspective on religion is bad because of the bad publicity it gets from people like maybe some of the people in the Catholic Church, or, you know, touching kids and things like that.
pedophiles.
And people just sort of associate it now with that just immediately. And a lot of people in my life have certainly, that's their go-to argument when you talk about faith, is just, oh, how could you do that? You know, these priests and that touch boys and all the rest of it. And you're like, well, that's not actually of God. It's not the right thing to do in any language.
No, abuse of other people on taking advantage of a position of power is, look, it's not just something that happens within the church. It happens with any positions of power where people abuse that against vulnerable people. So unfortunately, though, it is a common stigma with religion as such. I actually find the word religion to be something that has a negative conversation. Like when I think of something as being religious, that actually has a negative connotation for me, even within being, you know, my various degrees of Christianity across many years. Being religious was actually a reference to being very legalistic or bogged down in things, versus the discussion around faith and a personal relationship. So it's probably something we can get into for the purposes of, I don't know, laying it out there for people. Josh and I met each other in church when we were 7. He reckons 6. I reckon 7. It's not worth arguing about. But, you know, near on 30 years ago, that's where we actually met. Our parents knew each other long before that, and they knew each other through church. My grandfather was actually a pastor, and they met my dad through that. Josh's parents met my dad through that. I think at the time my dad was actually wanted nothing to do with the church, even though his dad was a pastor. And I think he used to babysit your older sister.
Yeah.
He's a fair bit older than us. So
12 years older.
yeah, but then many years later, when Josh and I were young whippersnappers, we met in the pews of church and found a bond in trying to entertain ourselves. And
Well, I think most of our entertainment was sneaking out to the coffee and tea room to make teas.
Well, yeah, we made teas
biscuits.
with quite a few sugars in them and invented games of hallway cricket and all sorts just to keep ourselves entertained. It was a thing back in the 90s. There was a lot of midweek church services and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, I can't complain. That's where I met Josh, and he's been my best mate for 30 years. So that's our origin story, guys. Oh, isn't it beautiful?
Yeah, you're one of my mates. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, thanks. I've been demoted.
Jesus.
Demoted. What the heck?
No, you're good. So I've got it.
No, I'm just okay. I'm not your best mate anymore. Whatever.
No,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
So bringing you into this conversation, Couchy, obviously.
Yeah, thanks. I'm probably going to be quiet on this one.
Well, you didn't grow up in the church, and I get that. But where's your opinion on all this?
Right. Well, so since growing up, like, I guess like most people our age, I'm getting there. I think most people our age, like our grandparents or parents, were being kind of involved in the church of some capacity. So my grandmother, she was involved in the church in the local town that she was in. So each time I'd visit her, I'd go to church with her and stuff like that. Or my parents never really used to be that involved. Well, since while I was about. My dad, I think he was a pastor boy. I think.
Pastor's kid.
Yeah, one of the two. But yeah, so he was involved, but then never expected, or he wasn't actually involved while we were alive. It was all when he was younger. So I think he sort of grew out of it, and I don't know. Maybe I don't think he resented it, but it's probably one of those things. So yeah, my involvement in Christianity or religion and stuff like that has been quite minimal. So my viewpoint is open to it, but probably on my terms, not really sort of someone else's terms. So if someone approaches you, if someone approaches me, I'm less open to the conversation. But if the conversation comes sort of naturally, or I approach a conversation, therefore I'll be a lot more receptive to listening, I guess. But yeah, I haven't been to church since I was a kid, so I don't intend to go to church.
Fair enough. Versus, I mean, growing up, I would say I was the most heavily involved. When you're a kid, you just go along to whatever your parents take you along to. But then, for me, being a drummer, I got involved with the band and the musical side of things, which started when I was like 12, all the way through.
Just going to stop you there.
Yeah.
What's the church music like for a drummer?
Well, it varies. So this is the other hilarious thing about, Christianity or religion in general, is that there's so many different denominations. So the musical style is actually different. So if you go to a Catholic church or a Lutheran church or something like that, you're going to be singing like hymns and real old school stuff, the sort of stereotypical thing people think about for church, like just old people singing hymns. But for me, like, we attended Pentecostal churches or Assemblies of God churches. So if anyone's familiar with Hillsong, that's the sort of music. So it's actually relatively modern and, it takes influence from a lot of secular music. So it's actually reasonable music. Like, it's enjoyable to play versus, like choir sort of stuff. So
okay,
a bit different in that aspect. So
a lot more relatable.
Yeah, a lot more relatable, a lot more accessible. I wouldn't say cool, but at times there's good music. I enjoyed playing. I had a good experience playing with the band, and I played with some people for 10, 15 years. But it sort of gave me an insight to the behind the scenes side of church. So I kind of have a bit of a different perspective versus maybe Josh. So I've seen behind the curtain sort of thing. Been heavily involved, and never was involved against my will or felt like I was used or anything. Which is a lot of people you talk to who used to attend church. They think, they just use me, or I did all this stuff and I didn't get anything for it. It was never about that for me. It was just my way. My sort of active service was playing drums, and I loved doing it. I got a lot out of it. But that was my own personal experience with things. And from a faith sort of perspective, that involvement carried me through. And I think probably something anyone wants to be is involved, and that sense of community, which church can provide. Like I met a lot of friends in the youth group as a teenager. There was regular activities that you could do. Like we went away on camps, and there's a lot of fun activities that we did. Like on a Friday night, we all hung out and did stuff. So I can't say it was bad from that perspective at all. So maybe a bit of a different experience to Josh.
What made you turn from it, man? Like, because I've noticed you pretty much played the drums up until you were a young adult, and then you sort of just dropped off. Why is that?
Well, I don't think you can say as a young adult. Like I played drums in church until I was about 5 years ago. So yeah, up till till I was about 31, I reckon. So that's well into being an adult. And I played all the way through, like most weeks. In some of the churches I attended, that was, a couple of thousand people on a Sunday. Which was fun. So
you'd suggest other people to get into it if they were thinking about it?
Well, I had my own reasons for being involved and what I got out of it from a personal perspective, but I wouldn't say to anyone, the whole concept of church is a good thing because there's a sense of community, there's a common goal, there's a baseline of ethics which is inherently good, like treating people as you'd want to be treated, all that sort of stuff. I think the ethics that get taught are not bad. There's all sort of different interpretations and theology on things, and there's almost trends within churches about what gets preached as well. But I mean, for me, I guess I haven't turned away from it, Josh, as you put it, but I sort of stepped away from it because I was a bit sick of the concept of church itself, because it is a man-made construct and it's heavily influenced. It's almost like a business model. They want to grow numbers, because the more people you have, the more money that comes in. And I'm not bagging anything by any means, but it's the reality. Like if you have a building that needs upgrading, you need money to be able to do it. And it's run like a charitable organization, but you need members to actually fund it. So
okay, so why is that a bad thing, man?
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what I saw, and I got sick of the concept of that, because it becomes like a club and it's very cliquey, and I found that it's very out of tune with the real world. So obviously I've always operated in the real world. I've had a job with, I haven't had a job with a Christian company, but there's a lot of people within church that, they grow up in church and then they work for the church, and that's all they see, and they exist in a vacuum. They don't realize there's a real world out there with real people who don't identify with anything going on in the church. And that's where I found there was a massive disconnect, that how can you be relatable to people out in the world if you just operate in this bubble and cliquey and only hang out with other Christians? And do you know what? I just found it really uncool. You talk to people my age and they just had no life experience, because all they knew was church and all they talked to was church people. And it wasn't cool. I found it really boring.
In a bubble.
I found it really boring. I just couldn't relate to these people because they hadn't had real life experiences. Whereas for me, I'd always, tried a bit of worldly stuff the whole way through. And I liked it, to be honest. I didn't want to not experience that. I wanted to experience life in the world outside of existing in a church bubble. So, look, I've never been against it. I'm still not against it, but I guess I've been heavily involved and then I've phased out of it. Like the concept and the construct of church and organized gathering.
With you, you were saying that the church can't survive without the money of the people that are a part of it. How does that money come about? Is it purely donation, or is there like a membership thing as well?
There's a concept of tithing, which is a biblical thing. So, it mentions in the Bible about tithing 10% of your wage. So you can imagine, in a small church with a few hundred members, that's not a huge amount of money coming in to be able to run things. But, in a church of a couple thousand people, that's a fair bit of money coming in every week if everyone tithes. And not everyone actually does. There's a very small percentage of people that actually do. But then there's fundraising type stuff, and then there's donations as well. And then the classification of a lot of churches is a charity, so there's no tax paid either. And there's been abuse of that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here saying that no church abuses that either, because some have, unfortunately, abused that fact as well.
Kind of seems like it gave me a vibe of like pyramid scheme. Wage.
He misses the reason for tithing, and that was realistically that was like a pool for the needy and the poor for the church to give back out. Obviously, the church needs to run, and the people that work in the church still need a wage. But like the ultimate thing was tithing was a pool of money, or way, way, way back it was generally grain or food, and that was to go to the needy, which a lot of churches don't do anymore. They try to do. They might do it like once a year or something. They do, gift packs up for the homeless or this and that, but it does seem to get lost a little bit these days.
I would say it's almost like a token gesture at times, or an afterthought, because the running expenses of a building, to pay staff, to pay, the people in leadership of the place, and there's not too many pastors of big churches that are driving around in crappy cars or owning crappy houses, which is bizarre to me. Like, if all this money's been allocated or tithes for people to put to good use, then over and above having expensive things, then it should actually go to helping people. And it doesn't. They pay for people to go on missionary trips to other countries, where there could be a lot more done for homeless people or people in need in our own country. So again, I'm not bagging it, because a lot of places do it well, but in general, it's not, the money isn't actually used the way it could be and should be, maybe.
It sounds like that just from my view, the churches are almost too big, and therefore it's not sort of spread out, because obviously there'll be more successful churches compared to others. But it almost seems like they're too big, so therefore money's just that sort of bigger number where it's too hard to not take.
You're getting into a little bit there, man, because churches,
maybe
the size of a church, it does matter, because they need to be personable. They need to be, you need to have that relationship with, those people, especially for a new Christian or someone that's seeking a better life and wants to come to God. In a big church, that certainly gets washed away a little bit, and then you develop naturally these cliques in the church. There's no doubt about that. And I'm not, I don't know how to get around that or what should be done. I do think a little bit more prayer and asking for God's guidance within those churches to help them out there. That should be priority for those churches, both in the size and the money, where it goes. And I think that's somewhat lost a little bit as well.
And don't get me wrong, I've attended churches anywhere from 30 people every week through to thousands of people every week. And it's a very different model for each. If you've got 20 people in attendance every week, then you might just rent like a room in a school to meet every week. And, no one's paid. Everyone's just sort of volunteer, and, the pastor has a full-time job and does, this on the weekends and whatever, and tries and helps people out. And I've seen a lot of, those small organisations do great work out in the community. But the bigger things get, then it almost does become more like a business model where you're continually trying to grow the membership and keep that money coming through. I'm not saying it's all about money, by the way, but there's the reality of it, of you got to be able to pay for a building, pay staff, pay for audio-visual equipment, and it becomes like a performance every week as well. So, being on a music team, there's got to be a degree of excellence. Otherwise people go, well, this is crap to listen to. The sound quality is terrible. The musicians don't know the songs. They don't know what's like. It's, you know, and there's a degree of people enjoying the performance because it's good music and it's well done, and the AV stuff is on screen's good. Versus people are getting an experience out of what's going on in the music, which is worship or, you know, praising God. Now, something I can speak on here is, I mean, I've had some crazy experiences playing music, right? And what I would say is probably my most powerful, what I say, experiences of, you know, God or a higher power or a presence or, you know, an actual tangible physical feeling of something. I don't know, with the benefit of hindsight now, like I can see that maybe some of that wasn't, like there's a principle like in a lot of cultures in trance and repeating the same thing over and over, right? So I do question now later on with some of those experiences of what people tap into when they get into a trance of repeating something over and over again, and they get a physical or spiritual sensation. So I guess those are the sort of things I question now rather than just go, oh, that was God.
Did you ever consult God about that to give him or ask for clarification though?
Well, you're experiencing something at the time, man. So you don't go, oh, hey, God, was that you?
Yeah, but you're questioning it now. So have you ever taken the time out to go, God, is this a view or is it a trance or whatever? The only reason why I say this, right, is because the closer I step into my faith and my walk with my Lord and Saviour, the more I feel his presence every moment of the day. Now, the little fuzzy feelings, they can be there, and if they're not there, it doesn't mean that God isn't with you. He is with you still. He'll always be with you. But it is definitely a tangible thing, and the more and more I read his word, the more and more time I spend with him, and it's especially out hunting. I find God out hunting. That's my little outlet where I find it's pure. I get to see what he's created, you know, that's untainted or fairly untainted. I mean, there's some few fences and things around, but that's all right. And I feel his presence and I walk, you know, and I want that. I crave that. The more and more I get into it, the more and more I crave it.
How do you get to that point? Because to the casual listener, they're like, you sound like a crazy person, Josh. Like you say, like break that down, because I know where you're coming from. But to someone like Couchy, for example, you saying, I'm finding God and I'm experiencing him in these things, like being out hunting and seeing nature. Well, we've all been out in nature and we've been in awe of how amazing it is and how wonderfully designed things are and how nice it feels and how, you know, it's good for the soul, in air quotes. So how is what you're saying any different to just feeling good because you're in nature?
Righto. So this has happened probably twice in my life, right? A couple of years ago, would have been started just before I got divorced, actually. So I was married once. And just before we got married, I just had a desire in my life to want to be baptised. And like you, I grew up in the church and I sort of wanted to experience worldly things, okay? I wanted to try it all for myself because when I was a kid, especially on you and me, Caleb, a lot of it was force. A lot of it was like, you will go to church on Sunday twice. You will go to Bible study on Wednesday every week, you know, till 11, 12 at night. And a lot of it was just, you know, I wasn't mature enough. I wasn't old enough to understand it. I didn't get it. And then in other aspects of my life, like school and friends and things like that, they're doing these different things. And, you know, at the time it was appealing. It was like, yeah, I wouldn't mind having a drink of alcohol and acting a bit foolish or whatever. So I stepped out into the world and then I had all these experiences. I joined the army. I had obviously the experiences in the army, which are even more worldly. So, you know, the carry-ons, the drinking, the chasing girls, you know, all those things that you think would satisfy you but don't satisfy. There's like, you know, when you get pissed, you know, you just wait, like you're almost looking for the next day that you're going to go out and drink with the boys and get up the mischief.
High. That's what it is. It's like a.
I mean like when you're coming off
release.
it.
Yeah, I know.
But
like that sort of lifestyle is sort of like the excitement of just say that Saturday night or Friday, or it could be Tuesday, Thursday, it doesn't really matter.
and look,
it's like it's just that feel good moment at the time. Your next day feels shit, but then you want to get back to that good moment. So therefore, you do it again and you do it again, and it becomes routine.
What I will say is doing all that stuff is super fun at the time. Like it's super fun, and I still look forward to, you know, hanging out and having drinks, going out, being a bit rowdy, having fun. But it doesn't satisfy. There's something inside, I think, all of us that goes, well, there's just something deeper that you're looking for satisfaction. And there's these things that you can fill your life with that are a lot of fun. And look, I still like getting drunk. It's fun, all right? Whether or not you should do it or you shouldn't do it, that's the other thing I don't like, is being told I can or can't do something.
But wait, that's also
but I'm not
a premise of our new covenant with Jesus is you have the choice to do these things.
Yep. Everyone's always had a choice, man. We've always had free will to do whatever we want.
Exactly.
But, like, it's not actually harming anyone if I get drunk and have a good time. Like, because...
You can almost say it is. You can almost say it is because you're creating like a group mentality that he's doing it, so I'll do it. So therefore, not like you're the first one doing it, but you're amplifying the situation by like being a part of it.
Yeah, and something else that exists in churches is there can be a lot of like legalism and stick to these rules and don't stray outside of them. And I get that from the perspective of you got to set a benchmark somewhere. And then say you've got a group of young people, and you know the principle is, don't all go and have sex with each other. So no sex before marriage, for example. That's a very common one. They set that as the benchmark. A lot of people still go out and do that within youth groups. I was one of them. And I knew it went on between everyone, but it was almost like this taboo, but you don't tell anyone about it. But if you got found out, then you almost exercised, like it was just... Or ostracized rather, not exercised.
Look, this is
ostracized. That's what I'm trying to say. Like
before we move, yeah.
So
before we move off from that topic, okay. So being celibate, is that the right word?
Yeah.
Or not
abstaining,
having intercourse, abstaining. That wasn't a be-all, end-all thing of Christianity or of religion, was it?
Look, so
it's been a point of view of like a pope or someone like that wanted to be closer to God. Therefore, he tried to be as close to God as he could, and not having sex was a choice he could do.
You're somewhat right. Yes, in the Bible it does say that if you can be celibate, do it. It is a good thing, right? But he's obviously given us women.
Does it say do it or you should do it?
No, it says it's a good thing. It doesn't say you should do it. It says if you can do it, do it. Some people are made eunuchs, and you know that's how they're born. And some eunuchs are made by men's hand, and then obviously you can't have intercourse and things like that. So you know,
with your penis anyway.
Yeah, well. So he's saying it is a good thing if you don't do it, but he's also given us a woman to have relationships with and reproduce and all the rest of it. So if you do it with inside marriage, because the unity of two people, a male and a female, when they have sex, they become one flesh. They're bound in spirit together, right? So that's the whole premise behind it. And sex is a powerful thing, because it's one of the things that's deceived the entire earth for a very, very long time. And the perversion of sex just keeps getting worse. As time goes on, it just kept the line in the sand gets just pushed further and further out. And suddenly things that weren't acceptable are acceptable now. Things like, this is going to be really, really, really controversial, but homosexuality and things like that. Okay, so that's just a line in the sand that's been moved. Okay, and I'm not standing here saying it's right or wrong. God has told us that it's wrong, and he's given us a set of rules on how to go about this style or this part of our lives that we should adhere to. And if we don't adhere to it, it has a consequence.
So if I'm anyone out there listening, and I've never heard any of this stuff in a church or outside of that. That doesn't make any sense. I've never heard that before, right? And I'm thinking, well, why should I listen to this God person? Like, who is he to tell me how to live my life?
Hang on. Listen.
Why?
Listen here. God still loves you.
Hang on. Why should I, if I don't know anything about God, right? I'm just the average Joe out there, and I hear you saying, God tells us not to do this. Why would I go, oh, well, of course, then I can't do that. Why would I be listening? It's just you saying God says not to do this. How does that then apply to me? If I'm someone out there who has no reference point here, they're just hearing you talk, they'll go, well, why does this guy believe this God person has any idea what we should or shouldn't be doing?
Well, why do you believe in God in the first place? And this is what I was saying before. Growing up in the church and living a worldly life and living that whole instant gratification and chasing the next thing, I never, ever was satisfied. And then I got to these two major points, pivotal points in my life with all my experiences, and it made me thirsty for something. And for a long time, couldn't put my hand on it, couldn't quench that thirst, didn't know how to quench that thirst. And then suddenly I just was like, all right, I'm going to start reading my Bible.
Gagged on it, didn't you?
No, I was going to start reading my Bible. Now, I'm lucky because I grew up in a church household, a church family. I grew up knowing the Lord, which
would you
could look at it that.
Would you say you knew the Lord, or you knew church and going to church?
I knew of the Lord.
The idea of it.
You knew of the Lord, yes.
Yeah, I hadn't stepped really into my relationship with God. When I did and when I started reading his word, things changed in me. And for a long time during this period, I asked just to be a better person because I was a terrible person, man. I mean, Caleb, you stuck by me, and there's times that I look back and I'm like...
You've never been a terrible person. That's why I don't understand your own opinion of yourself. You've never been a terrible person.
Well, you missed out a big chunk of my life.
You got rowdy for sure.
Be honest. You missed out a big chunk of my life. And
you would have got rowdy.
Likewise.
You know, I just wasn't a nice person. I wasn't nice to be around. I wasn't nice to people. I didn't encourage people. I didn't help people out. And I wanted to. And I prayed for that. And that was the first gift.
Josh?
Yeah, I don't even know how you stuck around either, actually. But that's all right.
So we met in the army, and that was when you were at your worst, supposedly. And I think I mentioned to you that I used to be around hunting, and I wanted to get into it again. And you're like, as you would, you're like, oh, I'm going hunting this weekend. Come along. And it started from there. So it's not like you weren't a nice person. You would include strangers into your life to fulfill their wants and needs. But
interpret that as you will.
Yeah.
Look,
and I wouldn't say you were a bad person. You might have been rowdy, but it wasn't.
Being a bad person isn't
like
just...
you always have been. You've been giving.
Being a bad person isn't just an outwardly appearance. It's also inside. Your wants and desires are selfish, and look, we all have these desires and things in each person in our lives, but some of it's not for the best. And this is what I'm trying to say is nothing fulfilled this desire of lust or this desire of ambition or whatever. Nothing filled it. When I started reading God's word, I started feeling refreshed, full. I was like, okay. Now, I didn't get when I was a kid, I didn't get these fuzzy feelings that Caleb was talking about during praise and worship at the church. I didn't get any of that. No, I actually asked for a long time, why don't I feel anything? Why? Questioned it. Now, that was the first time I started going down and reading the Word. And then some time elapsed and I lapsed as well, I guess you could say, and started falling back into bad habits and old ways and things like that. This year, it hit me like a ton of bricks, man, at the start of this year. I was like, I just need to read the Bible again. I need to read God's Word. I would like to feel full again and have joy. I mean, internal joy, where I'm really, really happy. You can be happy and have a laugh with your mates and carry on and get pissed. But then, you know, that moment or the next day or in a week's time, suddenly you're back to just not feeling full anymore and you want that, oh, let's go get pissed again so I can have that joy back. Well, God gave me that. And then this year it just intensified more and more and more. And so much so that, and yes, at the risk of sounding like a crazy person, I can feel him actively in my life now. And I'm still not perfect. I'm still going through things, still trying to get things right. But each day I come a little bit further. Of course you're going to take that for how you take that.
You can't be saying stuff like that and expect me not to.
I come a little bit further with my walk with Jesus. Now, this all sounds dramatic, man. Like what you were saying, this all sounds dramatic. How does a person on the other end of this,
it doesn't sound very relatable. It doesn't sound relatable.
It doesn't. It doesn't at all, and I get that 100%. And on average, someone hears about God 27 times before they choose to maybe give it a go or not to, and they cut it off completely. And that's their choice. God's given you that. So just maybe this might be one of those times that they get to hear about it, and then, you know, as their life progresses, they hear about it again, and then they make a choice.
Well, what you're describing is not religion, it's a relationship is what you're describing. So what do you have to do in a relationship? You spend time with someone else.
Yeah.
So what you're describing is, well, if the Bible is God's word, then you're reading it, so you're spending time in that way. Praying, spending time talking to the person.
See, it's much more than that. It's also giving my troubles to God. So when you come to Christ, and all you need to do is accept Christ into your heart as your Lord and Saviour, and then repent of your sins, and he'll start working in your life and changing things for the better. That's all you need to do, right? And that sounds very simple. That's the start of it. Let's just put it that way, right? I forgot what you asked actually.
Relationship, spending time. And you're saying it's more than just reading and praying.
Yeah, so it's more than that. It's giving your troubles and your worry to him, because when you've accepted him as your Lord and Saviour, and you read his word, it says in his word not to worry about these worldly things. He'll provide everything that you need to do. And I know that I'm at risk of sounding like a clown and like funny to thousands of people that might listen to the podcast, but I'm willing to go through that to get the message out to people, because I know how important it is, and I know how much he will take care of you when you step into that, okay? And when you give your troubles to him, instead of when someone's cutting Caleb off when he's driving like a hooligan down a highway and he swears and curses at the dude, instead just be like, oh, Lord bless him. And even that simple act right there can change your mind. It can change the way that you feel.
I see what you're saying, man, but you know what? That's how I deal with stuff. I'm 36 years of age.
Yes, you deal with stuff. You're not allowing God to deal with it.
It's my own personal way of dealing with things, man. I'm not.
Has it worked?
Other than,
well,
look, when something I've learned over a long time is don't bottle stuff up, just let it out on the spot. So if I get angry or I get road rage, I just let it out on the spot. And yep, sometimes it sounds like I got Tourette's, all right? But I just get it out there and I feel fine. And I move on to the next thing and I don't hold on to stuff.
You let it roll on you for about an hour.
I don't. I just get it out.
That was the argument between you two that let him ruin.
I just get it out and move on.
He was ruined by the argument.
I haven't driven after the guy and beaten the crap out of him. Then
pretty close to, mate.
But
some of your stories are terrible.
I felt like
you actually, I think you might have an anger issue out of it. Like, I got to live with you and experience you firsthand, and your anger and your frustration and your pride does become a massive stumbling block for you at times.
I don't understand what you mean by stumbling block, because have I ever physically taken it out on someone? Have I ever verbally abused someone? Am I a nasty person to people? No, I'm not. But I still find that I get my frustration out and I move on, and I'm a better person because I'm not carrying stuff around and being a grumpy asshole to everyone.
The kitchen cupboards would disagree, I think, when we were living at
Let me go over.
Those kitchen cupboards needed to be renovated. I can tell you that, mate. And look, I've punched walls, I've punched road signs, I've kicked the dog, but I have not. It's a phrase. It's a turn of phrase. I have actually.
No, he's kicked out your dog, and his dog's the size of a foot.
But I'm also well aware that I wouldn't actually cause physical harm to the dog, right? Oh, no, God, I'm digging a hole for myself. But what I'm saying is people with an actual anger problem who take it out on other people, they're not nice people. They actually need to change. I am still a nice person.
You are.
So you're just like you're like the gateway anger person. So it'll just slowly evolve, and then you'd be like, I'm a nice guy.
I'm an asshole if I let things build up and I get to a point of just being so angry and frustrated with what's going on in the world. So it's much better for me to just let out the frustration and move on. And
you gotta find
I'm
a release somehow,
I'm
whichever
not
way.
going to sit there and be like, oh, yep, that guy, he needs Jesus. Like, pray for him.
I never said that. I just said go out a different way and give your problems to the Lord. Give your frustrations and your anger and your...
Again, this is where it starts sounding like token and wishy-washy, because it's a fleeting thing in the course of a day where someone's cut me off or whatever. I'm not going to sit there and go, Lord, you deal with that. You take that problem on for me. Like, it's not. Okay, it's a thing. I'm a human being. I can deal with problems. I can deal with problems, man, and move on.
That's an example. I'm just using that as an example, right? So when I say problems, okay, you've been fired from your job. Now, this is where I can understand it sounds wishy-washy, but if you haven't given it a go, you won't understand. If you haven't stepped into the Lord's word and let him guide your life, you don't know. But say if you lose your job, okay, and you're stressed and you're worried about it, it's those times that you can just be like, okay, Lord, provide the path for the next step. Let's do it. Let's go. Now, in doing that, one, you're submitting to his will, but two, you're also calming yourself down by submitting to his will verbally. Like it is a coping mechanism in itself.
It is.
Right?
It's just a reference point to bring yourself back to, man.
It is, but then you also watch what happens and watch what blooms from doing that, from allowing God to control your life. Now, I'm probably if we're looking at it from like a worldly point of view, out of all three of us, I'm probably, how do I put this, the worst off.
In what?
From a worldly point of view, with things like possessions, house, this and that sort of stuff, like definitely more than likely the worst off. Good paying job, little things like that. But I feel so much joy, and I already feel so rich just by walking and stepping into God's word, that this other stuff just becomes secondary. It's a mute point at this stage of my life.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but something I've seen a lot of people do, or Christians do, is apply everything you're just talking about at the expense of actual practicality and living in the world they're in, and they just go, la-di-da, God will do everything, and they don't actually practically do stuff, because God still gave you a brain in your head, and you still actually physically have to do things. You can't just sit in your butt and say, give me a job, God. And a job comes across. Like, you still have to do your due diligence.
Yes, definitely.
And apply for jobs and
definitely
get education and all that sort of stuff. And I've dug myself out of plenty of bad situations. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. And I haven't sat there and said, God help me. I've just done it because I've got a brain in my head and I can sort stuff out as well. So,
there's no doubt about that, man. You've got to have a little bit of discernment, and God's given you a brain. But you're very lucky, right? You have a good education. You have the ability to learn very, very well. You have a bit of a gift naturally there, and you are very, very organised. And God's blessed you in certain aspects of your life.
Fishing knot.
Yeah, so he'd make a terrible, commercial fisherman, that's for sure.
But that was my job. I'd learn it, of course.
Obviously. But he's given you these abilities to do these things. Some people don't get those opportunities or have those blessings, and sometimes they need to just rely on God, or their life would be much better if they did rely on God, because through him, everything is possible, right? But yes, you still have a brain. You still have the ability to work out minute, insignificant problems for yourself. You're not going to be sitting there going, what do I eat today, Lord? Bacon and eggs or chicken cordon bleu? Like, come on. Okay, you get my drift. Now, if you had no food and no ability to get food, yes. Yes, most definitely be like, hey, Father, I'm hungry. Can you provide for us? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all, and you will see the provision come.
This is where I go. I think there's way too many people that either think what you're saying there. There's not way too many people, but I'm saying people were either going to think what you sound there sounds like absolute gobbledygook and you sound like a crazy person, or there's other people out there that just have no hope. They're super desperate and they go, I'll give this a go, see what happens. And then, food doesn't drop into their lap and then they go, well, that didn't work. So they move on to the next thing.
Oh, and no doubt. But also look at the Israelites when they wandered the desert for 40 years, they were fed on manna.
Here's our other bone of contention. So I've read the Bible just as much as you, right?
Go on with that.
Yeah,
go on with that,
right. So Josh is talking about physical manifestation, all these miracles, like the stories you hear in children's church, the parting, the Red Sea and the pillar of fire and
David and Goliath.
The miracles, the David and Goliath and all that sort of stuff. And look, they are stories written down, accounts, whatever you want to call them, where I have not a problem, but somewhat a degree of skepticism, good word, Josh, is in that these are, I don't doubt that they were actual events, but over the course of thousands of years, they've gone from the original documentation of it in a different language. So maybe that was ancient Hebrew to Latin to Greek.
So three languages was the first edition: Aramaic, Hebrew, and Greek.
Yep. So these are accounts and across different cultures around the world, there's similar accounts of the same stories as well. So this is what I don't get, is that there's so much lost
evidence,
interpretation.
And evidence. If you're saying that there's accounts from all over the world, well, that's evidence, right, of the same thing happening. That's evidence. If you've got an Asian saying the same thing of an account that happened in the Middle East, and then you've got a South African saying the same thing that happened in the Middle East, and then a Middle Eastern saying the same thing, well, chances are, man, especially if it's the first edition of that written account, chances are where it happened.
All right, here's a question for you, just out of left field. Do you think there was a Dreamtime serpent in Australia at one point?
No, but
do you see where I'm going with that?
I do see where you're going with that, right? And this is where we need to be careful because witchcraft is a thing.
Oh, man, don't go too far out. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Wait, before you go away from that topic,
now listen to what you've just said, though. Listen to what you've just said. Listen to what you just said.
You have to know and understand this. You have to be walking with Christ.
No, you can't do that, right? This is where I have a massive problem. What you're doing right now is because you are making people feel like they're not as good as you. You're making people sound like you're making it sound like you know the way, and how everyone else thinks is not correct.
Yeah, look, and I get that.
You're sounding elite.
I'm most definitely not the most articulated to get it across nicely, but we can make idols for ourselves, right? You make a god, cast a statue of a cow out of bronze and worship it, right? And then that becomes a thing, okay? People have the ability to do that, and in the history of the world, people have done that, and people have and can mistake things. But at the same time, there is a supernatural world or part of the world, right? That's definitely misunderstood. Now, when you're talking about creation of the world, so we're going right back. We've got Adam and Eve. They sinned. We've got Cain and Abel, and Cain committed the first sin. So that was murder. He murdered Abel. And from there, sin and the devil takes a hold of things and can embellish things, right, and skew things. And then people start worshipping or believing in things that aren't true from the first-hand account of what's happened or the creation of the world. I mean, we have that many first editions of the Bible, right? The Old, the New Testament. We have that many first editions. So the very first print of something. Now, you got to look at it back in history. One person's written account, right? And then the next guy comes along, okay, I want to make a copy of this to teach at my school. Well, they can't, there's no photocopiers, man. So they've got to write it down word for word, exactly how it is, right?
You've heard of the expression lost in translation?
No, hang on. Okay. So we go down that and then we have pretty much a litter of first edition accounts, right? So we'll say, for argument's sake, 10,000 copies of the first edition. So it's a first edition sort of, what's the word? First edition literature.
It's the original first edition.
Yeah. Now you're talking about lost in translation. So it was written and only translated in 3 languages, right? Aramaic, Hebrew, and Greek. Okay. From there, we've then translated it to English. Now we've got to look at the original dialogue of that time when it was written. People didn't talk the same as they did now. Okay. Words also change in meaning over time or vary from meaning over time. We say, oh, you're a sick. That's sick now, where no longer it means you're unwell.
You didn't want to say
right?
it, did you?
No, I didn't. But it's got a new meaning. It's like, oh, that's awesome. Whereas 50 years ago, saying that's sick or he's sick is saying that he's unwell, right? So we've got to think about that as well. So
you're proving my point right now.
Look, yes. So there are, and I get what you're saying. So there are essentially transcripts and then interpreted and then new transcripts being poured out into the world. Now, what the best thing about that is we have copies of the first editions, right? The series of the first editions, and scholars have looked at it and translated it, and they still translate it into common tongue. So the common tongue of the day, they'll still keep on translating it and going back and forth and looking at it and finding, what it means, and how to put it in English for the lowest common denominator, okay? But they have the original text to do that, and they have the knowledge of the language of back then to transcribe it accurately, okay? Now, you also got to look at back then in Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic, they didn't have filler words and, they didn't have those little filler words and I don't know what you call it. Things like from, to, filler words like that, okay? So it was like a literal text of what happened with no fillers. And obviously now we talk differently. We've got to add some of those minor words in for it to make sense, for it to flow when we speak it out loud, okay, for us to understand it. But it still doesn't detract that it's been translated from the first edition. So the very accounts of it from the person that saw it and writing it down, and scholars and things that were there when these things happen, writing it down in a book. We've got those books, mate. We have those books.
Can I
interject?
Can I bring you to something,
Time
for
out.
example? So has anyone seen Ancient Apocalypse?
No.
It's a Netflix series.
No.
I don't think you'll watch it because you'll probably yell at your screen and be like, that's rubbish. But Caleb, watch it. It's interesting. So it's Graham Hancock. He goes around the world. It's like kind of like the pyramids, for example, in Egypt, but goes through like the pyramids in China and South America.
You love getting those two
And
confused, don't you?
I do. It's a South A, and I just like always confuse the one with the other. Anyway,
South Australia.
so he found a lot of interpretations and stuff like hieroglyphs and just hieroglyphs and carvings and all that in just the history of it, and they were sort of trying to explain the fact of people coming on in boats and sort of teaching them these things. So the way things were built in South America compared to Egypt were like extremely similar. And it wouldn't be like a variation of that knowledge. It would be taught by someone that they perceived it as the same people taught these two cultures or civilizations. So he goes on to believe that the time frames probably won't agree with you, Josh, or both yous, but there was an ancient civilization prior to our civilization that thrived on this planet that were still humans, but they were just, we were either hit by a comet or something sort of that wiped out a majority of the population, and knowledge was lost just over survival because we had to survive again. So it knocked us back into sort of a stone age. Now there was groups of this that actually they survived and they maintained that knowledge. And then so the Younger Dryas was a period of sort of what he's trying to tell, and each sort of state stamp or time stamp that he would find would date back to either pre or just at the start of the Younger Dryas. So the Younger Dryas was like correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone knows about it, but it's where the ice sort of freezed over, or at least large portions of it. And something caused a rapid melting of this ice. And a lot of these hieroglyphs try and talk about the flooding, which the Bible talks about flooding of the earth. So is it far-fetched to think that this Bible and these experiences that the Bible are written about is the experiences of these sort of cultures that experienced the original civilization of their teachings to reinstate Earth and the human culture?
So you're talking about the age of the world, essentially, man. And I'm going to tell you, I'll just give you an example here. Right, so when God made Adam, did he make him an infant? No, he made him an adult. Okay, same with Eve.
How do you know that?
So, well, how would he looked after himself and fed himself if he was an infant? Right.
Now, what I'm saying, Josh, is I understand that
just
you
hear
believe.
me out.
I understand that you believe. No, I understand that you believe that.
No,
And
can you hear me out?
That's just give me a second. I understand that you believe that, but are you open to that side of things?
He's not talking about the age of the earth. He's talking about the accounts of the same things.
You're talking about right there, like extinctual events that happen in the world. Now, God can also build. If He's built Adam and made Adam an adult, right? He can build the world with age into it. Okay, so He can build rock formations that have the appearance of an ice age or some sort of event or whatever. He can do that. He's the creator. Now, I just want to chuck that perspective out there on the whole age of the world thing, which is essentially what you're getting at, a civilization predating what we know of.
He's not getting at that. He's getting at the same thing.
He's literally getting down to the point of, okay, was there a people before that roamed the earth before we knew and had technologies that we knew, and an event happened, and then we've got history.
There were still people. There were still humans.
That's what I was. I didn't.
But that's what you're saying, right? That's essentially.
I think you are asking about. Well, there's evidence of like a flood, which is also mentioned in the Bible. So through the Younger Dryas theory, and there's like scientific evidence of a period where the world was flooded. Well, that story exists in the Bible, and it's around God flooding the earth on purpose to get rid of all the people that had just turned against him, and Noah and his family survived. That's the Bible story versus the scientific explanation of that. So you're saying, well, the Bible story is that the truth and anything else isn't right.
No, I'm not saying that at all. And I don't know. I obviously wasn't alive back then. So I can't.
You said the Bible is the truth.
Well, the Bible is the truth. Yes, it is the truth.
But
don't get me wrong. I'm not saying
but you
that.
don't know because you didn't exist back then.
I know because he's given us that as a historical account of what the world has happened. God has, right? The person that made the world.
But men wrote it.
Giving you the book.
So if God made the world, how do you not think that he can't give the ability for someone to write literature on what's happened and then keep it consistently retranslated through the generations? If he's created the world, can't he do that? If he can't do that, well, is he any God? Of course he can do that if he's created the world.
Of course he can do it, but at the end of the day, what trumps all that is God gave us free will to do whatever we want, and men have been the ones who have written and translated and picked apart and taken little bits. Think of just the different denominations of religions, man. That's why they exist, because people have picked and chosen the portions of the Bible that they want to focus on, and versus what they don't want to think, because of that they want to just go, oh, that I like the way that sounds, I like the way I can apply that, but I don't like that, so we'll just leave that part out. So that straight away tells me that, whatever actually happened at the time, like if the way the three of us interpret and write down a story of an actual event, there's exactly what happened. And then there's how Couchy sees it through his lens of his upbringing and how he interprets it. And we can all have the same basic story.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
The same basic
all different
story,
accounts.
but we all see it differently, man.
And that's
then
exactly
we tell it to someone else and the story changes slightly, and then they tell it to the next person, the story changes.
That's why it's written down, mate. Right, so it's not a verbal thing that's
just
changed.
Because it's in writing doesn't mean it can't change over time. Man.
Look, and I get what I get what you mean right now, mate. Right, you're saying, and yes, people can pervert things, right? But God can also create a way where it's unperverted and kept constant through the world's the entirety of the world's existence, right?
But this simply is not the case with the Bible.
What do you mean it's not the case?
Because your version of the Bible,
you're saying I know this from me. So how do you know that that's exactly what happened?
Because I can see that there exists all these different versions of a Bible in different languages with different meanings and different interpretations, and I've watched over the course of I don't know how many years now, people interpret it differently. And there's one version of the Bible which is actually completely different to others.
I've already explained this before, mate, and you weren't listening, right?
Hey, now you're mating me. Now you're trying to sound condescending, Josh.
No, I'm not sounding condescending. You're just trying to throw something back in my face when I've already answered it.
Because it's not making logical sense.
Of course it makes logical sense. If we have the first edition of something and we're translating from that first edition, those first-hand accounts, right, of what's happened, if we're translating that, right, yes, there's different versions of the Bible. You've got the King James, the NIV, the Good News Bible, and this and that. And then, yes, at some point they can spread a bit far out from the line, a bit far out from the exact translation.
Left and right of arc, as you would say.
We've also got the ability to go back, study them, and retranslate them in its pure form. So we don't have to go to a translation of a translation.
I don't understand
we
what you
can
mean.
go back to the original source.
Hang on.
Do you get what I mean?
I don't understand what you mean by pure form, because, all right, what in your mind, what period of time, did Genesis through to Revelation exist? Like how many thousands of years is that? What's that period?
Look, the world's only, according to the Bible, the world's about 7,000 years old.
Okay, so the Bible 6,000 years, right?
That it is about that old.
So who wrote down the account of Adam and Eve? Who recorded that?
His sons.
Did Adam and Eve write that?
His sons. And hang on, you're missing the big point.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to make a point to you.
Hey, but I'm going to also make a point to you. So God's created Adam and Eve. He's also created someone and told someone, when back in the Old Testament, God actually spoke to people. Right? If you look at it, he actually came and spoke to certain people that found favor in God's eyes. And God has told them himself, from the person that's created it, from the source, the very thing that's created it.
I think you got your blinkers onto what I'm trying to say here, man.
Can I say something?
No,
Go for it.
I get
Go
what you
Couch.
mean.
Go referee.
So what I was getting at before, Josh, was could it be so far outlandish that these cultures have got taught by the culture that maintained their technologies and knowledge? They went around and taught these different cultures, and they were seen as gods to these sort of basic cultures, and they were writing scriptures and the Bible per se. That's why you have so many different sort of varieties of the Bible that are similar that create evidence. And they've seen these sort of higher not higher.
What technology in the world has explained the creation of the world? What technology in the world has done that? Have you seen hieroglyphs that explain it? Have you seen... they're still trying to do it now, man. They're still trying to go, it's a big bang, but they can't prove it.
How is that any more relevant than reading it in a book and believing that?
The person that's created the world, and look, this is a part of faith.
So
Look, I have to admit,
This is chicken and egg, man. This is chicken and egg.
no. So this is also a part of faith. So a part of believing in faith, where technology can't explain what you guys want. But the creator, the person that's created it, has written down for you. You're choosing not to recognize it, and you're going, okay, I want factual stuff, and I'm not going to recognize, I'm not going to listen to what you've written down and what you've provided a way, an untainted way for us to know. I'm going to go over to the science side of things and say, okay, men built pyramids and then traveled to another land and taught them this new race that they discovered that they're gods. Okay, one, they're all dead, right? These people that created the pyramids and this and that, they're all dead. They're not a living God. This is where it gets very skewed with idols and things, mate.
What are you talking
Idols
about?
are dead.
I don't know what tangent you're on now.
What are you on about?
You're just not following. Okay.
No, you
that's
can't
fine.
explain that with that. You make yourself clear.
I'm making it very clear.
If two of us are not following where you're going with this, I don't understand.
I'm making it very clear.
Well, start again and make it clearer.
Now I've got to think back.
I know that probably helps you become more composed.
If you write down on a piece of paper, I had 3 eggs for breakfast this morning, I can either choose to believe you and have faith that that's what you actually did. I can, if I was actually physically there and watched you eat 3 eggs for breakfast, I would believe it wholeheartedly. Or I could scientifically cut you open and find 3 eggs in your stomach for breakfast.
So,
Or if I was rewriting it and didn't understand numbers and I just wrote, fuck it, this guy just ate eggs for breakfast.
Or you could hand me a piece of paper that says that, then the next person gets it and goes, eggs, what does he mean by that? Well, I'm I don't know, I live in Africa and eggs don't exist. So what could that mean? Maybe that's, I don't know.
okay, so how did the world
Donkey's
start,
feet.
Caleb?
So then the story becomes Josh had 3 donkey feet for breakfast. And then the next person interprets that differently. And then in 1,000 years' time, you ate 3 giant stones for breakfast and shut out a log. I don't know, man.
No, look, if you're going to say
say
3 eggs in 10 languages from a first-hand account, you're saying I ate 3 eggs. You're going to write down, I ate 3 eggs. You can literally look at the symbols and redraw those symbols.
Can we go back to that?
So there is a way that
Adam and Eve?
comes...
Humour me. Can we go back to Adam and Eve, right? So the account of Adam and Eve, you're telling me that Adam and Eve wrote down what happened to them and then their children wrote down that account?
God
wrote it.
spoke. Look, I don't actually know who wrote Genesis itself, but God spoke to them and told the account. This is back when God spoke to man itself.
So it's not first-hand. From the start, your whole argument doesn't work because you're saying it's an exact first-hand account of what happened. It's an interpretation. Unless Adam and Eve wrote down what happened every day in their life and then passed that to the next person, and then they wrote down everything that happened and wrote it to the next person, it's not a first-hand account. Straight away, it's not a first-hand account unless someone's been there through the whole thing and written down what's happened.
So,
and what about all the other civilizations around the world that existed outside of that once, So it started with Adam and Eve, and then they had kids, and they had kids, and they had kids.
As
they
I
moved
said,
around the earth. Are they just irrelevant?
what other religion or species has answered for the creation of the world? How did it
There is
come
a creation
about, mate?
story in plenty of other religions. Like
Well,
I said with the
let's go.
rainbow
Let's hear it, man.
Like I said with the rainbow serpent, man.
That was Australia. I want to know how the world was created, Caleb. Please tell me. The floor's yours.
That would try and speak of how the world was created, how the land was
how
created.
every other race,
Necessarily
as according to Caleb, has a creation story. So please,
Well,
go ahead.
I don't obviously know.
How was man created? I
don't know what every other race around the world has for a creation story, but there are other creation stories that exist outside of the biblical.
Well, please tell me, mate.
God did it, man.
Please tell me. Please tell me these accounts.
I don't know them because I've never studied them, Josh, but they exist.
So tell me if they exist.
You know what it sounds like, Josh? Like it sounds like that you're saying faith and you're believing in something that's not. Well, you really see lack of evidence. You're sort of believing in the written.
Well, no, because there's still tangible evidence.
Still talking. So you believe in the written. It kind of sounds like that you just have sort of a blind faith that this is true without any sort of.
No, there's still physical evidence, as I just said. So
is it?
Well, yes, they've found Noah's Ark. They've found the chariots where the Egyptians crossed the Red Sea and it collapsed on top of them after the Israelites had gone through. They've found the chariots in the ocean. They found these things, man. They know where Jesus was crucified. They know where Jesus' tomb is. There's multiple accounts from different angles. So say three of us witnessed an event. There's three different people writing three different accounts, except there's more accounts of Jesus's life and resurrection and crucifixion, right, from multiple different people that saw it differently, that still have the common traits. Now, if it was all exactly the same, would you believe it? No. So there is variations because people saw it differently, right, or experienced different things, but the overall story is the same. The overall
couldn't that have been just across the Younger Dryas age where there was that massive flooding, because there was land bridges across countries that there isn't now. So therefore, that was a part in the sea. And then the massive flooding was when the chariot got washed under the water.
So how do you explain Noah's Ark?
That was just a boat.
A boat, when boats weren't a thing.
Of course, boats were a thing.
No,
that's what I'm saying. No, Josh, that's what I'm saying. So the civilization that maintained their technologies prior to the Younger Dryas or this extinction event, they still maintained that technology, taught what they could teach in other cultures, and boats were one of the things that they used.
Well, where's the evidence of these other cultures, man? You're saying that a portion of them survived to teach the next lot of people. Well, one, where's the next lot of people coming from if it's not from their loins? So where's
pre-existing? There is evidence of pre-existing culture in South America, across Peru and through the what's the forest called?
Amazon.
Amazon. So through the Amazon, through LiDAR scanning, they've actually mapped the area that was underground, like sort of density and all that through underground, and it shows that it used to be a city. And there's stories of this explorer that accidentally took a wrong turn down the Amazon River. And he was writing stories saying that it was filled with a culture and people and buildings, and it was thriving. But now it's just practically
jungle.
A rainforest, a jungle, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's actually LiDAR imagery showing that their foundations of once was a thriving city across where the Amazon is.
Well,
the Amazon itself is pretty much imported plants, really. Maybe not all of it, but there's a lot of evidence showing that the Amazon is made up from non-native plant life that was used as we do for plants around houses and buildings and stuff like that.
Look,
it's just been something wiped them out. Disease was the biggest thing, and the forest took over.
Look, civilizations have come. They've come and failed, and you look at excavate underneath Adelaide, mate. They'll find other buildings underneath Adelaide that were built 100 years ago.
So why
Oh.
then
Yeah,
can't there have been one
that's
before
what
the
I'm-
biblical account of civilization?
That's where Noah's Ark come from.
Well,
that was the boat from the previous civilization.
How do you explain, as I said before, the creation of the world, mate? So there has to be a start point to it all.
I'm going to believe scientifically how it was created.
But okay, so
That's how I'm gonna
how
believe
is that created? How is it? How does science explain it?
However, the one leading cause is a Big Bang or a comet. Well, you're talking about going the planet or the solar system.
The whole lot.
But we'll go the planet. And we'll go the planet.
No, the solar system needs to be created as well because the sun. We rely on the sun to have life, for food, for growth, this and that. So that's got to be created at the same time as the Earth.
Same time.
Well, if it's not, mate, say if that star, if we were created a billion years,
something has to create the comet.
Later, that star could be dead, and we wouldn't be able to survive this close to the sun if if it had destroyed itself or whatever. And then
No, I understand that.
right.
Where does the first particle come from? Because something has to start somewhere. Because obviously planets are just matter drawn into a gravitational pull.
That's the question. I don't think you can answer with
you can't.
religion or science or any of it, man, because you can just keep tracing it back one step further. Right? That people say the Earth,
with God's word, you can. In the beginning, there was God.
No, but that's what you're saying.
Someone wrote that
That's what I
down
was
for
saying
you to
before.
then read and interpret and believe or not.
So if
what I was saying before, Caleb got up and left, was the Bible and having faith in the Bible is you believing wholeheartedly that was written in truth and not in story.
Well, where is there any other explanation for it all, man? And so Caleb's.
No, you're just not seeing it and wanting to see it.
You want to put your faith in that.
You're not open to, which I understand.
Look, I've been open to the Big Bang and this and that. That's what I mean when I stepped out into the worldly ways. None of it made sense, man. None of it. Like they can't prove anything from a scientific point of view how the entire universe was created. So there has to be something that's outside of time, space, and matter to make it. What's that? God, right? So because time, space, and matter have to exist at the same time. So if God's not outside of time, God has to be outside of time. He has to be outside of matter. He has to be outside of space, right, to make those three things, because it's a trinity of trinities, right? They all have to exist for us to have life here at the same time.
Who made God?
He is everything. Like before God, God was.
Do you understand,
God
to
and
the
is.
casual observer, how crazy that sounds, man?
Look,
so God has no start or finish. God just is, but he's the only exception to all your rules.
Well, no, he's outside of all those rules, mate, of what we need to survive. If you have to explain those three things for us to have an existence, go. Without God, without a creator, how do you explain it?
No one can, man. It's literally pick your own adventure on this one.
Well, hence why God has allowed his
literally pick your own adventure and choose the one you want to believe.
Blueprints of how the world was created, how we had life for us to follow, for us to know, for us to draw back. He's created that as well. He's simply created that whole book for us to go, okay, and explain it away to us. We just want to try and work things out in a tangible, physical way that we don't explain. There is a point of we won't know until we're passed away, because there is a spiritual realm. There's a part and a side of it that we don't get, we don't understand, and we can't understand until we have gone and our body has died and our spirit's moved on.
Here's where I'm at, right? So, grown up, Bible story, God, a whole lot through church. Where I'm at now in life, at 36 years of age, through my lens, whether that's right or wrong, my own personal point of view of things is the way I see things, like I'm very design and creation focused. So I can't look at the intricacy of nature and how things are designed and believe that that's evolved out of a big bang, right? So I believe, yes, there is a creator. Now, I also believe human beings are spiritual as well. There's a spiritual element to all of us that we either access or we don't. All right. Do we need to then wrap that up and neatly say that's God? I don't think so. I think that, yes, there is a higher power and you can tap into that spiritual element of things and it's your own personal journey. But I don't think we need to say, well, that thing is God and the biblical account of all the stories is necessarily one way or the other the exact truth.
Well, where do you go when you die, Caleb?
Again, how do you know because you've never died?
No, I'm asking you, mate. Don't try and sideswipe the question. I'm like, where do you go when you die? I'm asking you as a question.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if there's another dimension and you just become a spiritual being. I believe there's I believe there's a spiritual dimension. Right? I do believe that. But I don't know the concept of heaven and hell. And yes, there's good and evil, but I don't know if the concept of heaven and hell is necessarily what's going to happen. Like you're just going to, like we taught, you're going to die, you're either going to go to heaven or you're going to go to hell. I don't know that that's actually a thing, man. Like it's just an interpretation, a story. It's a good way to control people to say, well, if you're not a good person and you don't become a Christian, you'll go to hell. That's a very good way of forcing people into a way of believing things.
How do you explain your personality, your emotions?
Because I've been created.
Okay.
And I exist
in someone's image. Maybe no.
Well, so your personality is different to mine, and I'm different to Couchy, and vice versa. We all have an experience, a physical experience on this earth, through our upbringing, through our friends, through the things we go through in life, and we all have a brain. So
why then were we not made like if you don't believe in God, why then were we not made like an animal that just thinks about eating grass and mating once a year and then eating more grass? Like, why do we have anger and sadness, love, all those things? Why? Why would you? How would you explain all that?
Because we've been created to be able to experience all those things and think about those things.
So, if without a God, why would we need those things? Why?
Yeah, if we're saying the same thing, man. I'm saying a higher power has created us. I'm not necessarily saying that thing is what you would label God or that Christian.
So, what would it be then if it wasn't God?
I don't know. I'm telling you, I don't know. It's a higher power, a spiritual being that has created us. You want to call that thing God. I don't necessarily want to. I don't necessarily want it to subscribe to the Christian God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, Noah, Moses, Abraham, all that stuff. Like that's irrelevant to me. I can see the beauty in nature and that some things are so intricately designed and amazing that yes, something or someone had to have created that because they're so amazing. And yep, I'm created. I'm here to experience Earth and interact with other human beings. And yes, I'm different to a pig or a horse or a camel.
So why don't they have love and fear and anger and frustration, and why don't they have a spirit?
Because they were designed to be our food, man. It all works together.
You know,
everything's
all that's
interconnected,
explained in the Bible. He's literally wrote that all down for us. He's created animals for us to eat.
People have written that down and passed it down through generations.
So if this creator can't find a way to put his blueprint and plan that he has done for us to then
how is it a blueprint and plan, man? It's a bunch of stories.
Why?
How's it a blueprint and plan? How is it a blueprint?
He's created
and plan?
Us in his image. I believe that, and I believe that he could have just created us to follow him.
So right? Why aren't we all clones? Why aren't we all clones? Why don't we look exactly the same?
But he's created us in his image to have individuality and to have freedom and the choice to either follow him or not. He could create you to follow him and you just follow him blindlessly.
But you're following someone you can't see, you don't know what they look like, called God. All I'm saying is just simplify that a bit. A higher power. I don't know who or what or putting a label on that. I'm just saying there is a higher power, what I believe, the higher power that's created everything, and things are all very much interconnected, and there is a spiritual world. But what I don't subscribe to is just believing blindly.
You're literally describing God.
Yeah, but like,
Couch, do you understand what I'm saying?
I can't see where.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
What you're saying.
You want to slap a label on it and call it God.
Yeah. You're both talking about the same thing. You're naming and he's not. That's the only difference. And I don't see how that's any different.
It's literally no different. But you're just putting a label on
anyway,
it.
I feel like we're going in circles for probably the last half hour. I've started checking out. So I imagine our listeners are too, probably well before I did. So, is there anything else you wanted to touch on, Josh?
Yeah. Look, I get you.
Not touch on that we've touched on, but let's move on from what we're just talking about with creation.
Just don't touch it appropriately.
No, that's done enough. Do pastors still mistake you as a small little boy, Josh? Just to your size?
Tall back in the age. Back in the day. Actually, I'll be average height, but that's all.
Man, you've always been below average.
It's been a while since I was
still below average height.
Well below.
Look, I understand that a lot of this is hard to grasp, and that's why I encourage you to read. Get a hold of a Bible. I'd recommend NIV Bible, and have a read of it, and allow God to show Himself to you, to make your life better, to just try it. I mean, people say, "Oh, I went to church and this and that wasn't for me," and I'm like, "Well, did you actually try it? Did you actually spend time reading the Word?" I'm not saying go to church either. I'm just saying read His Word. You don't have to go to church to be a Christian. Read His Word.
I have on that is the fact of, you say that the more you try and talk to God, the more you practice in religion, the more you feel it and the more you experience it. Couldn't that be explained to the fact of you tell yourself enough, then it's true? If you keep telling yourself something, you'll start believing it, or you'll start experiencing or feeling like that is true. But if you keep going on that, then you'll believe wholeheartedly that is the truth and the only truth, and that's what happened.
Look, that is a good question, but because I noticed the change in my life, and I've noticed how his presence. I've noticed it. It's unexplainable for me to sit there and be like, yes, it was me. I can't do it, man. I made a mockery of my life. For the first 36 years, I've made an absolute mockery of my life, and I have not done many, many things right. And the more I step into it, things seems to work out. And yes, I make better choices because I'm following God's Word. God's Word is a very good guide to help you make choices in your life, some of those hard choices. Even if that's all you take out of it, or that's all you get, it certainly helped me there. But then the more I go into it, the more I see Him in my day-to-day life doing things for me, opening pathways up, And yes, right now, there's things that I can't explain. I don't know everything. There's been some hard questions to try and explain tonight, and I haven't explained them very well. But I feel and I know in my spirit, my soul, in my heart, in the deepest part of my heart, these things that don't come from me, because I'm not capable to do these things. This certain feeling, this unexplainable quenching of my thirst for God. I can't explain it, mate. It's unexplainable. And until you give it a go, until you read the Lord's Word and invite Him into your heart and allow Him to open up to you and witness to you, you won't understand until that point. I'm not at that point where I can give you a definitive answer, Couchy. I can't go, this is how I know.
No one has. No one's been at that point.
No one has all the answers, man. And I've been at where you are, practicing the same things you're doing.
when you practice these things and you read God's word, you want to turn away from certain lifestyle choices that lead you into sinful paths and
See, this is where I
direct
have a
your
problem.
mindset.
This is where I have
man.
a problem again, man. So I've been where you're at. I've done the things you're talking about.
So
right?
you're perfect now without it.
No, I'm nowhere near perfect.
So
man.
would you say you were closer to it when you were?
No, I don't understand where you're talking about this striving for perfection and being a better person. Like, everyone can understand what being nice to someone is and being a good person. I don't understand, and where I actually have a problem with where you're at now is because you've been down this path a few times, right? And what I don't like is what you become when you do this, whereas you become so fixated on it and you almost become, take this the right way, you become very legalistic and almost boring in some ways in that I feel like you're not being your true self and just hanging out and have fun. You're overthinking, I can't swear, I better not swear, for example, which you would say now is a sin, right?
No, I never said swearing is a sin.
No, but that's how it comes across to people because we're all swearing and carrying on and having fun and just being ourselves as mates. But then in the corner, you're making a concerted effort not to, and then apologizing when you do, and it's jarring, man. Like, it becomes a very unnatural experience for all of us.
Don't make a concerted effort not to. Actually, I think it like knowing me when I was a child, I didn't come out the womb saying swear words, man. So actually, I'm closer to being truthful to myself than I am far away. I don't need to swear. Swearing's like, you can be a Christian and swear. That's fine.
It's a way of expressing, and like a lot of words have changed meaning over time. The effectiveness of swearing is very different to what it used to be as well.
I don't want to. And you're saying that like I'm coming, I've done this a few times in my life. And as I mentioned before, I've done it once before, okay, where I wanted to quench that thirst and I stepped into the Lord, and then I came out, like I lapsed. I came out of it, and I didn't like the way that I was going without him. And now I do. I don't need to carry on anymore like a mindless idiot. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't like how I become, who I become. And I know that there's better out there for me, and I can't do it without Jesus. And because now I'm in a relationship with Jesus, so like I've taken that step and I'm walking with him, I want to please him. I don't want to do wrong by him. And the more you read the word, the more you understand, okay, what's right and wrong, what you should and shouldn't be doing, and why, because it can lead to sin. Sin is a thing, and sin is not what you want to hear. You don't want to be called a sinner, Caleb, because you don't think you sin. You sin, and you need to hear that you sin.
Of course I do. I do mean things. I do wrong things.
Would you call it sin?
Treat people the way they shouldn't be.
Would you call it sin?
I don't like how you're...
The connotations of sin, because then it would mean that you believe in God. That's exactly where you're going.
That's not where I'm going with that. What I don't like is the condemnation that you are bringing when you say, I'm not going to do this because I'm on this path of being more like God. And then if any of us do the things that you're trying not to do, what does that do to us?
I don't judge you at all, mate. I still sin, and I'm not going to not sin. Like, it is very, very difficult, and I don't judge you. It doesn't mean that the way that you act in your life, I need to copy that. And, I don't want to. I'd like to continue my walk with the Lord. You act however you want to act. I'm still going to be mates with you, and I'll still have good times, and I'll still have a few beers, and, we'll have campfire talks and this and that. But other than, I don't want to lead the life that I was going down.
See, this is what I don't understand. You're not a bad person. You've never been a bad person. We've all stuffed up. We've all done the wrong thing. I've done
and that's
probably just as bad
Christ.
things as you've done in your life, man.
That's the best thing about Christ. He loves us no matter what, man. And we're all sinners. I'm not better than you. I still love
myself, even though I've stuffed up.
I just want to be better, and I want to stand in front of Jesus on Judgment Day, and him to look at me and say to me, "I knew you. I knew you, my good and faithful servant. That's what I would like to hear.
Yeah.
How does
I knew
this?
you when
How
you
does
used to be
how does
fun.
this sound from like quote unquote an outsider's perspective, Couchy? Because tell us honestly how all this sounds. How this is coming across.
Yeah, it sounds pretty wild. Yeah. I don't know. I understand where you guys are coming from, but a lot of it I don't really follow or understand or even believe, or I tune out.
So exactly, this stuff has to be
through half of
accessible and relevant and have a practical application.
Of course, it's accessible and relevant.
Anyway,
The Bible's relevant for everyone, and you
can't just say that,
a lot of this
Josh.
conversation, like I'm directing at you, Caleb, once again, because I'm still a bit baffled as to how you got where you're at, because I was where you were at many, many moons ago. And I sort of sit there and I get a little bit frustrated because I'm like, okay, I don't see how he hasn't come to the same sort of place that I'm in. And look, each to their own, and we have free will. And I don't look at you any like different. I don't judge you anyway for it at all. I'm probably still speaking a little bit more direct to you, and not so much from like a new person first hearing God point of view or hearing about God.
We're not here to talk to me. We're talking to listeners, to them.
No,
to get
we're here to
something.
have a conversation. That's what we're here to do, and we're having a conversation, and I'm talking to
We
you.
are having a conversation, so take out of this whatever you will. You can think we're all absolute morons if you want. I don't care, but this is where we're at. We're having an honest and open conversation with each other.
Here's one for you, Couchy. Do you feel like there's something missing inside your heart? Like, have you ever felt that? Have you ever felt immense loneliness, or just something that, yes, you can say that you're happy, but you know, there's just an underlying thing that comes back every now and then, and is there more?
I don't know how to answer that. Like, there's obviously times in your life where you're things could be better, or things haven't worked out the way you wanted to. So you could, in that time, probably feel like something is missing, or something could be more. Where 100% it could be, but I feel like that's just is what it is, and that's through the experience of life. That if without the hardships, you wouldn't enjoy the good times. So it's a yin and a yang kind of thing. So yeah, at times.
So
But at other times, I don't.
I'd encourage, if anyone out there is in that sort of situation, just pick up a Bible, buy one, and have a read. Start at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Read the New Testament, the Old Testament. You'll need some help to navigate, but start there.
Oh, hang on. You've just put a friggin' disclaimer in. If it's all
Man,
if it,
like from we're talking about we're talking about a new person here, man, coming across. I am not new to this, and I still struggle just reading the wording and the lineage of the New Testament, the Old Testament. Sorry.
So
You know what I
again,
like about the Bible?
you're telling people to pick and choose.
You know what I like about the Bibles?
The New Testament
Is the
is under Christ.
Is the what?
The pages. The pages feel cool in a Bible.
They're
probably
nice.
the
It's a
one
nice
positive I'll
paper.
give.
It's a nice paper.
Yeah, it is a nice paper. Very nice.
It's like the old encyclopedia paper. We used to. I don't know if you did it. This as a kid, you used to like go get the encyclopedias with the gold edges on the pages and rub it off and get
just,
gold on
like,
your finger.
flick it. I just like because obviously when it's together, it'd be a solid looking gold piece, and then you flick it along with your finger and it'll all separate.
Look, at the end of the day, choose to believe whatever you want to believe. If you're struggling and you want to reach out and talk to people, by all means, talk to
email
us, talk to
us,
other
that's
people. We should all just be there for each other and be able to talk and have a discussion, which is what we're doing. We don't agree on everything, as you can see.
Give us an email. I want to hear people's opinions. So how do they email us, Josh? Email us at sendermatepodcast. sendermatepodcast@gmail.com. Give us an email. Give us an opinion or a question. So obviously, I'm pretty sure Josh should be open to answering, or Caleb, about religious questions. Obviously, don't send that to me because I'll be your worst person to talk to about that one. Yeah.
We see things through very different lenses. We've had very different experiences. We're all at different points. It's a journey.
Yes, it is.
But people will be able to take bits and pieces out of the stuff we're all saying.
I hope so. I hope they're still here, to be honest.
So I think the best way to get through life is actually share experiences with each other and just be kind to each other.
100%.
I don't think there's anything religious or otherwise about that, but you can actually help people through your own experiences. And certainly the hardest times I've had in life, I've got probably more out of talking to someone who's gone through the same thing. And yeah, however they handle that situation, I don't necessarily go, well, that's the exact way I'm going to apply that in my life. But you get a sense of knowledge and understanding on how to then apply that to your own life. So I don't know what I'm trying to say in that, but we're all here experiencing life on this planet together, and we can all help each other through whatever system of belief you want to have or whatever label you want to put on anything.
Yeah.
We are here for you.
Baby. We'll start rocking out in songs soon.
I don't know if we even achieved what we wanted.
Tears.
What?
I'm not sure if we did.
That's very dismissive, Josh. That's very, would you say that's the right way to behave?
Yeah, it is in this instance, because whatever you just said was boring.
How is it? Anyway, we'll just go in another circle. How is it any different to some of the crap you've been rolling out tonight?
Don't give in. It's a test for you, Caleb. But yeah, if anyone's new listening, this is a hunting and outdoors podcast. You wouldn't have known, but if you are to jump on high caliber at cleaningsupplies.com.au, you'll find gun cleaning oils and knives. Make sure you chuck in "Send It Mate" for a code of 10% off.
You sound very British.
This is the most professional.
I'll do half.
This is the most professional.
He's written
wrap-up
down
he's ever
something
done.
and he's reading it.
No, I haven't.
Verbatim.
Have you been practicing?
He's translating
check
it
out-
actually, so it's probably not the truth.
Look, mate, he's on it. Exactly. It's his interpretation of how to wrap up a podcast. Go, Katie.
There's no interpretation. It's just winging it. But also check out Firearm Owners United. They're the guys that fight for hunters and shooters everywhere and across Australia. So regardless of what discipline you have, they will fight the egregious. What's the word? Egregious. Outrageous.
Egregious. It's not outrageous.
Egregious.
It's egregious.
Egregious. Firearm laws that the government tries.
The shit firearm laws.
So yeah, back up the people that back us up as well. So that was worded poorly again. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this podcast. I know I have. There's been parts where I've tuned out, but I'm sure everyone has had their moments, including you, Josh, the last 10 minutes, which has been weird.
Yeah. Pick and choose and interpret it as you will. Tell your friends about it. Write it down.
Yeah, let us know what you thought.
See what it sounds like in
probably
1,000 years' time.
We're probably not going to do this one again, but we'll probably have bits and pieces come out in the podcast in the future, obviously, I reckon.
Well, yeah. Look, we had to get it out. We had to just...
No, just say it, mate. You're entertaining me. Look, I'm fine with being a clown. Just say it. You're entertaining me. I asked for it. We did it.
Who was? Me? You? Someone? Caleb? I think we're all entertaining each other because it was one of those podcasts that I know you wanted to do, Josh, and I was sort of skeptical, but I thought it might be entertaining in a way.
We did put it out there to the popular vote to see if people wanted to actually do it. We did
And
it.
we didn't have anyone say no.
Give us some feedback on how you think we went. If we're all a
100%.
bunch of crazy morons or we're still good blokes.
Even send us a thumbs up just to let us know that you've made it to this point. Because I want to see a thumbs up to anyone that's actually made it to this point, just to evidence to show that you've got here. Because I'll be surprised, to be honest. But yeah.
Right, let's go. Dragging this outro out way too much. Right, dudes and dudettes, that's it from us clowns at Send It Mate Podcast. See you next week.
Catch you. I need to go for a hunt.
Sounds
Yeah,
like
cheers.
you need a bit of
Thanks for
holy
listening.
water on your forehead, mate.
Man, I'm going
Oh,
to
geez, cut it
drown you
now.
in some holy water in a minute. Let's get out of here. Catch you.
Sweet.
G'day, dude and dudettes. Josh here. Do you find it hard to keep your long, hard barrels free from gun STDs? Maybe you need a clean out of your bore. If this is you, jump on over to highcaliber.com.au and use the promo code SENDITMATE to receive a 10% discount on all your gun cleaning needs. And remember, it's sexy to support Australian-made products. Everyone here at Send It Mate uses High Caliber, and we can promise you that it'll keep your firearms free from those pesky gun STDs.